Greetings. My name is Terry Reese. I'm the Executive Director with the Federation of Ontario Cottagers and Associations, and with us today is Dr. Rosanna Salvatera with Peterborough Public Health.
Hello, everybody.
We're pleased to continue our work with Peterborough Public Health. You may remember Dr. Salvatera from other items we've done around Lyme disease and ticks and blue-green algae and other items, so we're pleased to be talking to her today about the topical item of the century and of our lifetime, which is how to be safe in this time of pandemic, and specifically about how a return to the cottage might be done at the right time and in the right way to be as safe as possible for our families and our communities. So obviously our normal experience of the cottage is going to be quite different this year, and we're looking for the best advice possible so that we can do, all of us do our part to do this safely. We're talking about cottages today, but of course that could be a cabin or a camp depending on where you are. And we have members, of course, that aren't just seasonal members, but I think that's going to be the main theme of our discussion today. We also do have members that are from all over Ontario, but also that come from outside of the province. So it's everyone loves to be here, and we're all trying to do, for our own part, our best to make sure we're staying safe. So we had a few questions we thought we'd ask the doctor today and see if you could get this for posterity's sake, and we'd share this far and wide so we can keep everyone safe. So here we go. I guess the first question is, should I even be going to the cottage, or what are some considerations about going to the cottage?
Well, certainly I think the best advice is that we all need to heed the recommendations and the emergency orders of the Premier and the province. So they apply everywhere in Ontario, including cottage country. So while non-essential travel is being discouraged, we should delay our plans to travel to our seasonal home. Just think of it, each weekend that trip provides an opportunity to spread the virus from one location to the other. So the provincial emergency orders are still in effect, but we do see restrictions that are beginning to be lifted. So if you are choosing to make the shift over to your seasonal residence and turn that into your home, then I think the best advice is to follow what the Public Health Agency of Canada and the federal government are doing with travelers. Treat travel to your cottage the same way as travel from away. So purchase all your supplies and groceries ahead of time. Don't stop on the way. Go directly to your cottage. And when you're there, plan to isolate with no visits, no trips into town for the first 14 days.
Okay, so that's good advice. So some people are going to be going for a variety of reasons, and despite the advice, and we'd like to know, what about guests to the cottage? Long weekends are always a big weekend for guests.
Right. Well, this is not the time to have guests at the cottage. So again, keeping in mind that COVID-19, we have nothing to fight it. There's no vaccine. There's no way we can protect ourselves except through what we call physical distancing and keeping that 2 meters of distance. So it's very important that if you're going to go to the cottage, that you travel and you stay with only your household members. Rather than inviting and hosting guests to the cottage this year, you might want to plan to make the cottage available to families or friends sequentially, and do a thorough clean in between each set of visitors. Don't plan to stay there, especially if you are over 70. Remember that you should be self-isolating to protect yourself. And if you're under 70 years old, don't act as a vector for the virus. Protect yourself and your loved ones. Stay only with your household members right now.
Right. So as much as we'd like to do that, and it's a seasonal trend and habit, we're going to have to hold off for now, I guess. Mm-hmm. What about, besides groceries, what else should we make sure we're bringing along for traveling to the lake?
Well, yes, be prepared and be self-sufficient. So pack enough hand sanitizer, bring your cloth face coverings with you, your cleaning supplies for all the high touch surfaces. Again, you know, although you may feel more relaxed at the cottage, it's not the time to let down your guard against COVID-19. So take everything you need with you.
Right, of course. That's good. That's good information. What if I need help getting my place started up? A plumber or someone else, a handyman.
Well, you see, you can be putting them at risk if you're incubating COVID-19, even though you might feel well and not have any symptoms. So the best thing to do is either make the arrangements to have that work done remotely before you get there without any physical contact. Do all of your payments online so that you're not handling cash and having to get close to people. Or if you can't do that, that would be a reason to delay your re-entry to your seasonal home.
Right. Okay. Now, I guess it goes without saying that if you're sick, you shouldn't be traveling at all, and that you should be isolating. What if you're at the lake or at the cottage and you get sick?
So again, think ahead, bring a thermometer with you, bring some acetaminophen with you, tissues, and, you know, learn the signs and the symptoms of COVID-19 and self-monitor for them. We should all be doing that right now. Know which local public health agency serves your community and where to call to find out about testing if you need to be tested. And right now, really, if you develop any symptoms that are compatible with COVID-19, you should get yourself tested right away. Self-isolate and test. And anyone with a positive result may be advised to self-isolate, to continue self-isolating in their primary residence where they can receive deliveries of essential supplies. So if you can do that in your cottage, if you're able to self-isolate and have other people do your shopping or pick up your meds and drop them off in a way that you don't have to make contact, you could potentially self-isolate at the cottage. But if you can't do that, if you don't have friends or family around, or maybe it's just not easily, your cottage isn't that accessible from the local community where groceries are purchased, then it might be actually better to self-isolate at your primary residence, wherever that might be.
Right, and closer to your primary caregiver.
Correct.
What about going into town? Once we're at the lake, is that something we should be doing, or what do we need to think about when we're going to town?
Well, remember, all of those retail outlets are practicing physical distancing, and we should be minimizing the numbers of time that we go into them, because the virus, I mean, anyone can be carrying the virus. If you're going somewhere shopping where there's been lots of people, you could encounter the virus on a surface. So it would be important to consolidate any trips to the shops. Perhaps there's someone in your neighborhood at the lake who's going into town and who can pick up things for you. So reducing those trips into town, consolidating them, only going in once a week for essential things like groceries or medications. When you do go, it's probably best to wear a face covering that protects other people from your droplets. I would also recommend that you carry and that you use hand sanitizer before you enter any establishment. Don't rely on them to provide it for you. Bring your own. And certainly after you've touched surfaces or groceries, make sure you sanitize your hands afterwards as well. This is the time to get in and out quickly. You know, it's not the time to go for an ice cream cone.
Fair enough. And we all want to support these communities, but now is really not the time to be spending lots of time in town. Is there anything else at this time of year that we might be thinking about just to avoid any unnecessary risks or the things that will put other people at risk at this time of year during the pandemic?
Well, I think it's important that you do your research before you go to before you go to your seasonal home or the cottage or cabin. Plan ahead. I would recommend that you actually visit the website of your local municipality, find out what's open, what's not open, have they made any changes to essential services, check out those local retailers and pharmacies and find out how to stock up safely. You know, some of them may be doing online or phone ordering so that you can order ahead, find out how much time you need. Can you pick things up a day later or 4 or 5 days later? So do all of that research ahead of time before you go. That's going to help prevent you from getting into anyone's space without planning. And of course, if you have water access only, contact or connect with your marina and find out when it will be safe for you to plan to use your boat.
Oh, that's true. We have lots of safe spring tips from FOCA, and that involves things like checking your heating appliances, making sure you've got smoke alarms in place, making sure your wiring's still intact after a long winter. So there's lots of other things we need to think about to be safe at this time of year.
Mm-hmm. I think the other thing too, Terry, is that this is going to be the year where where we're physically apart, and that we try and stay socially connected virtually. So this is the good this is a good year to plan to stay connected with your Cottagers Association through email. So make sure that you've got that you're up to date with all of that information, so that you can get your information online if you've got access to internet at your cottage. This is the time of year to make sure you've got a good phone connection, so that you can connect with your neighbors by phone rather than in person. And when you do see your neighbors or encounter them, make sure you keep that 2 meters of distance.
And that's hard for all of us as social beings, but you're right, it's so important. The social media pages of many of our lake associations are thriving these days. That's a good source of finding out what's going on, but I think I would also encourage people to rely on the official sources, because this is a changing situation. So public health, certainly from your local government, the province, and the federal government too. What about testing our well water, or what if we need some sort of maintenance or pumping of our septic systems? Is that something that can happen at this time of year?
Oh, it certainly can. And so you can still pick up a water sample bottle from your local public health agency. So here in Peterborough, you can get it from our Peterborough site, or you can get it in Havelock down the road, and then you can return it to either of our locations. So that's something you can check out ahead of time on the website of your local public health agency. And it's important to think about sewage systems. We will continue to be receiving applications for sewage systems, and we continue to inspect sewage systems which are failing and actually constitute a health hazard. In addition, starting in June, so just very soon, Peterborough Public Health will be conducting mandatory and municipal re-inspection programs. So if you're in the Peterborough area and you want to find out more about this, please check Peterborough Public Health, our website, for more information.
And I guess we should not forget to mention that there's a fire ban on for much of the province, and so it's not only a good idea to follow that advice anyways, but at these times when we're trying to avoid any kind of emergency or need for emergency responders, I think that's important to remember.
That's true. We want to protect our local first responders, and to do that, we need to avoid risky activities. We should observe fire bans. We shouldn't take risks. The water is cold now. It's not the time to be rescued. And certainly moderating our use of alcohol so that we avoid risky behaviors is a good thing.
Very good. Thank you. Well, that's been a great set of information. We really appreciate you sharing that with us. We'll certainly continue to share information through the FOCA alert and on our website from Peterborough Public Health and from others. Please do pay attention to the advice from your local health units, because they're a source of excellent information that we need to know and stay safe. And I think it's important that you know, I think you'd agree that it's important that we all have a role to play here, and that's by sharing this kind of information with our neighbors and friends and family, but also to model this kind of behavior too.
Well, you know, it's so healthy to be in the outdoors. And I mean, for our mental health, it's great. It's great to be physically active. So we want everyone to stay safe, and also to keep their communities and their neighbors safe.
Right on. And we all want to be in the out of doors for our mental health and to do it safely. So, well, thanks very much again to Dr. Rosanna Salvatierra from Peterborough Public Health, and everyone out there, be safe.